This Week in the Boardroom, brought to you by NYSE Governance Services Corporate Board Member, along with Governance Knowledge Partners, the Center for Audit Quality, and Grant Thornton, and contributing partners, National Investor Relations Institute, and the Society of Corporate Secretaries and Governance Professionals.
Welcome to this edition of This Week in the Boardroom. I'm TK Kerstetter, Chairman of the NYSE Governance Services Corporate Board Member, and we have a great show for you today. We're going to be talking about audit reporting and a call to action. And with me is the A-team, okay? These are two ladies that happen to know the subject very well, and I'm very happy that they're joining us to talk about this. So let me introduce them. First of all, to my immediate left is somebody that you've seen before on the show. Cindy Fornelli is the Executive Director for the Center for Audit Quality, and welcome back, Cindy.
Thanks, TK. Always a pleasure.
And joining us as the second part of the A-team today is Michele Hooper, who's the President and CEO of the Directors Council, and also sits on the board of PP&G and United Health Group. So welcome, Michele.
Thanks, TK.
It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Glad to be here.
If we're the A-team, she's the A+, and I'm the A-.
Okay, well that
we'll
makes
give her the A+.
That makes A. So anyway, we're here to discuss the Audit Committee collaboration paper, of which Corporate Board Member and the NYSE Governance was one of the groups that participated in the process. I think you had 6 or 7 groups that participated in that. It was called Enhancing the Audit Committee Report, a call to action. Okay, so I think a good place for us to start is why don't we talk, I know, again, Corporate Board Member was excited to be a part, but Michele, you participated as an Audit Committee member, okay?
Yes.
So can you share your views on why collectively the collaboration of companies sort of took on this project?
Well, first, I want to thank all of the collaborators that have participated in this project. The support and the insight that we've gotten not only from Corporate Board Member, but the National Association of Corporate Directors, the Association of Corporate Directors, Tapestry Networks, the Directors Council, the Center for Audit Quality, and is there one more?
I think you hit the major ones.
We have had really great input and insight from everyone on the process that we've used to come together with this assessment tool. We came together to really look at ways in which we can support the transparency of audit committees in terms of being able to help the effectiveness of the financial reporting process. Our first tool that we came out with was in 2012, and we looked at the annual auditor assessment and came out with a tool that was very well received. One of the things that we flagged as we went through the development of that tool was the need to help our audit committees to enhance their communication with investors and others that look at the financial reporting process. And so we believe that greater reporting and greater transparency in the enhanced reporting of the auditor's oversight tool and about our oversight role would be very helpful to our investors as well as regulators as they go through the financial reports. There's really a lot of information and a lot of work that audit committees do, but for some reason we sort of hide our light under a barrel. And we don't really have many tools to really tell people outside of the boardroom what it is that we do and the results of what we do. We have our charter, which normally is provided for the audit for the public, and it's usually on our website. But the other tool that is our communication vehicle is the auditor report. And heretofore, it's always been a very much driven by the standards of the SEC and our other regulators. We're saying as part of this process that it would be helpful to give more information about and be more transparent about what we do in the audit committee to actually execute on the charter responsibilities that we have. Part of the process that we've gone through is to say, what is it that would be helpful for individuals to know. And so therefore, over the recent months, we have actually gone on and we've talked to audit committee members, we've talked with general counsels, corporate secretaries, we've talked with investors, we've talked with regulators, and we've come up with this tool that we released yesterday in terms of enhancing the audit committee report that says we can go beyond the minimally required reporting that is put forward and come up with a much more better communication tool and communication vehicle.
Well, I know you mentioned that you talk to investors and also audit committee members. So I would think that they would be two very interesting groups to sort of, make sure you have a good feel of what needs to be done. So tell me a little bit about that process, Cindy.
Yeah, as you know, TK, when we go about doing new resources or tools, whether it's the CAQ alone or in collaboration, particularly in collaboration, we think it's important to go out and canvass those players and those stakeholders who have an interest in the work that we do. And so in this case, as you mentioned, the investor community, the audit committee community were particularly of interest to us, as well as the legal community and the corporate secretaries community. And so we had various outreach points with those various individuals and groups representing those individuals. And the response has been very, very positive. To pick up on some of the points that Michele made, I think that people understand that audit committees do this work, but oftentimes there's not a lot of transparency around it. And so what the call to action does, which I think is very interesting, is it doesn't call on audit committees to do more. It calls on audit committees to disclose or communicate that they're doing those things. And that's important. And so we heard from a number of investors saying, we want to know about the process that the audit committee goes through. And while some of this is disclosed elsewhere, for instance in the charter, as Michele mentioned, it shouldn't be a treasure hunt. An investor shouldn't have to go to various places. So having this disclosure in the audit committee report, we think is a great next step to demonstrate the effectiveness and the work that audit committees do. So we've had great response from investors, academics, audit committee members themselves, and as I mentioned, an important constituency is the legal and corporate secretaries community, and they're supportive of this too. But we're always cognizant of the fact that you don't want to have too much disclosure. We've heard the SEC under new Chairman Mary Jo White indicate that she's going to look at disclosure effectiveness or enhancing disclosure, and we think that's important too. But we don't view this as adding too much disclosure and being meaningless disclosure, but rather this just gives investors and other readers of the audit committee report and the proxy the information that they need to be confident that the audit committees are effectively discharging their duties.
Michele, can you explain to the audience why we felt it necessary to label it a call to action? Because obviously the investors have been distracted by comp issues probably a lot, but audit still is the foundation for strong boards, strong committees. But here we've taken the liberty to say call to action. I think it's helpful if you could explain sort of why we felt the need to do that.
It's interesting because with the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, which was 11 years ago now, there was a significant increase in responsibility and accountability of audit committees in a number of areas, including the hiring, evaluation, compensation, and perhaps change of external auditors. We have a number of responsibilities in the area of oversight of the risk management process and other aspects that really are not, while it's in our charter, it is not disclosed anywhere else in terms of how we are executing on those factors. We call it a call to action because, quite frankly, over the last several years, given particularly the financial crisis, we're seeing more and more focus by regulators and by investors on what is actually going on in the boardroom, and in particular, what is going on with the external auditors. because, again, they don't have transparency to what the role and action is of audit committees and the members of audit committees in terms of our responsibility and how we discharge those duties. We're calling it a call to action because there isn't transparency to that, and because of that, many of the changes that people are looking for and they're pressing for, they're not really engaging audit committees in those discussions and in those variables. So as we've gone through our work as a collaboration, this point of, is there a way to better communicate what we do as audit committees, keeps coming up again and again. There are a number of audit committees actually over the last several years who have actually begun the process of expanding and enhancing their disclosures through their audit committee report. And there's actually a report that has been done by E&Y and one by Deloitte & Touche and several other individual companies. I know my company at PPG, we also went through an extensive review a couple of years ago looking at how we could make our audit committee report more informational and more valuable to our investors. And so there's a lot of change already going on, but a lot of requests both from the investor side as well as the regulators to begin to look at how we can communicate better.
You know, another reason to call it a call to action was that we are hoping, in addition to the organizations that form the audit committee collaboration, that individuals and groups that agree with the underlying principles surrounding the call to action would also go and sign up and register their support for those principles. And so you can do that by going to the dedicated website, which is auditcommitteecollaboration.org. Very clever name, don't you think? And there's a place to click on and say that you agree with the underlying principles that are outlined in the call to action. It doesn't require any additional work or any additional dedication, but we're hoping that audit committees themselves, chairs of audit committees, investors, individuals, and other organizations would go and register their support for the underlying principles here in this call to action.
So Cindy, we got about a minute left. Can you sort of summarize for the audience what's in the report, what they can expect, and then we'll tell them where they can also get other links to it.
Sure. So what we have in the call to action are real live examples to highlight some of the things we're talking about. So companies such as McDonald's, Coca-Cola, and others, we've actually pulled the information from their audit committee reports. But the areas that we focus on are audit committees giving disclosures about how they oversee the work of the auditor, how they go about selecting the audit firm and the lead engagement partner, how they go about compensating the external auditor. And so not the particulars, but the process that they use, and to demonstrate that they are indeed taking these responsibilities that they have seriously. So I do want to stress again, though, we're not asking audit committees to do anything new that they're not already doing, but to disclose that they're doing those things.
Well, I know that Corporate Board Members' website, boardmember.com, has a link to the report. Where else can they get copies? And then maybe you better repeat that link that you could again.
Right. I think the easiest place to get it is on the Audit Committee collaboration page, which is www.auditcommitteecollaboration.org. Or, as you mentioned, you can go to Corporate Board Members' website. You can go to the CAQ's website, NACD's website.
Any of the collaborative partners will have links to the report. So you can go onto any of our sites as well as the collaboration site to get a copy.
Well, I hope that we get the kind of momentum, for that this call of action deserves. It was a pleasure to be a participating organization as part of that, which we thank you for the invitation.
And we were very pleased to have you. It's important to have groups like yours sign up to do things in this area.
And your viewers.
Yes, and our viewers. And thank you for joining us today. And that will conclude this edition of This Week in the Boardroom. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back again next week where we'll take a look at another critical topic that'll help us be a better board member or committee member. So we'll see you then.
Join us again next week for This Week in the Boardroom, brought to you by NYSE Governance Services Corporate Board Member, along with Governance Knowledge Partners, the Center for Audit Quality, and Grant Thornton, and contributing partners, National Investor Relations Institute and the Society of Corporate Secretaries and Governance Professionals.